in this episode, we're going to do something a little different. I'd like to dive in, and I think it'd be really cool for all of you to hear this too, to Adam's content journey in terms of making it for himself and making it work for himself and what he's building right now. So, maybe for those who don't know, Adam, how long have you been in this content creator trying to make a business for yourself in Valorant?
I'd say at this point it's like getting close to 3 years. Maybe it's like around the 3 years mark. Back in 2022 is when I stopped competing. About a month ago, like in May in 2022. So ever since then, I kind of have made the pivot to content creation and coaching. Trying a bunch of different things, but yeah, it's been about 3 years.
It's kind of crazy because that's right when I left my job too. Like I
Oh,
left 10 years in real estate development, July 2022. So coming up on 3 years for me. It's just past 3 years for you. So if you were to give us like a Coles notes, like where where did you start off trying to make this for yourself at first? Like right May 2022, what were you focusing on?
um, I was on like, well, I guess I was started coaching on like Fiverr,
Yeah.
like just marketplace stuff. I would get like a few signups there.
Yeah.
On the YouTube, I didn't have like a good content creation strategy, and like I didn't exactly know what my content would be. So
Yeah.
like at the start, I was still playing ranked, but like I was making videos on my ranked clips. I would like slap some music on it. I was just uploading highlights, and at some point in there, I was also coaching for another thing. Um, I was like coaching in there like at part time as like the head coach and
Yeah.
in that program.
Like another
But
program.
yeah, another program. But like the content creation strategy was just like I'm playing the game, I'm streaming, like hopefully this will kind of get my brand out there. I didn't really know
Yeah.
what I was doing. Um, and it was okay. I think sometime in there as well, I picked up a startup. Like I started working for a startup part
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and
I
that
remember
was
that. That's kind of when we met.
yeah, and that was paying for my expenses at the time,
Yeah.
which let me kind of focus a bit more on being stable financially, and then
Yeah.
anything else was a bonus.
Yeah.
So I wasn't like super desperate for money. And I think my strategy at the time was like streaming. At some point, it started pivoting from like content ranked gameplay to like actually coaching stuff.
Hmm.
And I think I was doing like picking up part of like Woohoojan's strategy of like streaming. I think I was doing like once a week. And I was like VOD reviewing, or I was doing
Yeah.
something along those lines and trying to turn that into a video.
And then
So
when did you launch your kind of like that premier coaching offer?
yeah, that was it was around the time that I saw Woohoojan announce his auction for his. I don't know if you
Got it.
remember.
Yes.
I
I
don't
do
exactly
remember.
remember the time frame on that, but he was doing that. I was like, oh my god, that's like a cool idea. And I was doing the one-on-ones, one-off sessions for a long time on Fiverr. I think I moved to MetaFi for a short time, and
Yeah.
yeah. So at some point, I made the switch. It probably was sometime in 2023, and so I guess I've been doing that for about 2 years now. It's been through a couple of iterations. At first, it was like 4 weeks, then it was like 3 weeks, and then 6 weeks, and then now it's currently at 8 weeks. And the price has kind of moved, and the curriculum has changed a bunch too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been doing that probably for around 2 years, I would say.
And how many students have run through that program, you think, if you were to guess?
I mean, if I were to guess, I would probably say like close to 100, if not over.
Wow.
Uh, uh,
Students.
yeah,
You got like
but
an army.
it's been a while. I definitely don't keep in touch with as many, but it's been a while. It's
Yeah, you
been
could be just this, if you gather them, you could be like the goat dad.
yeah. No, it's crazy to think about though.
So you were doing that, and then what are you building right now?
Yeah, so at some point at the start of this year, I was like, okay, one-on-one coaching's cool. I love it. It's great. It's taking up a lot of time. and I didn't have a community, like a sense of community. So at the start of this year, I decided like I need to build a community. I see other creators have it. I don't have it. Let me try and make something. So what I'm building now,
What was a
basically,
community that came to mind for you that you're like, oh, that's a cool community?
there's two that come to mind. So one is Broken by Concepts
Yeah,
community.
of
They
course.
they have the mid lane one and the jungle one, like Sol 2. There's something else now, but that was one. And the other one was actually from a streamer I watched, Brush. Like I would always tune into his stream, and like we're colleagues or friends. And every time I would join his stream, he would always have like his viewers, his normal people that would come in, and I feel
He's a
like I
Viper
didn't
main,
have
right?
that. Yeah, yeah. He doesn't play Valorant anymore, unfortunately, but he was a
Oh,
Viper main.
okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's something I wanted for myself, and I just
Hmm.
didn't have that.
Hmm. And what, when you were thinking about launch, maybe let I would like to just maybe jump ahead. If you were to say in 1 minute, where is the community now? How many people are in it? How's it doing? What do you do?
Uh, we have 69 members.
Nice.
Ironically, we've been live for about like a little bit over 4 months.
Okay.
What we do is we have like sessions once a day on the weekdays. They take about 90 minutes, but the curriculum kind of covers everything you would need to kind of get better in Valorant. So Mondays we have lectures, kind of just cover any common topics, common mistakes. Tuesdays and Thursdays we have pro reviews, so that covers the playbook side of things. And then Wednesdays we have mechanical training sessions. So far this has ranged from 1v1 contact drills to some 1v1 TDM stuff to some aim training stuff, because we had LG Low Gravity collab with us to make an aim training playlist to improve peaking technique. That just happened on Wednesday, so yesterday.
Cool.
And then on Fridays, that's where people can submit their VODs and get VOD reviewed.
Cool.
So yeah, everything that you would need to do to get better at the game is in there. And of course, as much as you put in is kind of how much you get out of it.
And it is how much per month?
It's 30 a month, so 30 USD a month.
And then your premier coaching program is
$9.99 for the 2 months.
okay.
So
So
it's
very different price points.
very different price points, which that's kind of why I wanted to have a lower price point option with the community. It's like
Okay.
I didn't want to alienate so much people.
And so that's where you are today.
Mm-hmm.
Let's rewind to when you were thinking about starting it. What, if you were to go back to yourself then and tell yourself, like maybe was it 5 or 6 months ago when you were really thinking about this? Do you think yourself back then, would you be surprised at where it is today?
I think so. Not necessarily with the amount of users or members, I should say, but more so with the direction it's pivoted towards. At first, the community, like the curriculum was very much VOD review heavy.
Yeah.
Bring in a VOD, like we had like 3 VOD review days. Like pro reviews was still part of the curriculum because that's how I learned the game, and I think it's really important. But there was way more VOD reviews. And there was also less community interaction, which
Sure.
ironically is what I wanted to build, but that wasn't my strong suit, so I didn't know how to address that. So we've kind of shifted the curriculum to cause less repetition,
Yeah.
and also kind of like optimize the community a little bit more, the interaction piece.
What, when you were launching, when you were thinking of launching the community, what scared you about it?
Ooh, that's a good question. What scared me about it? I think, I think one of the bigger ones was that it wasn't gonna work out. Like
Mhm.
either people would join and just like not get value or not like it, or maybe people just wouldn't join at all, and like all this time I've been building my channel, like no one would show up, you know? So I think a combination of those two things.
Mhm. And so even though you know where you are today, you can remember back then when it felt like maybe it's something that couldn't work.
Some
And
imposter syndrome for sure.
I think this is where, like, this is kind of like a hey kids point, but you know, just, I mean, there's adults listening to this too, but it's just like, I just want to point out that right now you have something good and it required work and effort to get it to where it is today. Even something that's working really well at one point felt far away and scary and maybe not possible. And the only way to figure it out is go do it.
Right.
I think this podcast is just me reaching out to you and being like, hey, do you want to talk about some stuff? And you being willing to be like, hey, sure, like I'm not entirely comfortable just talking live on a podcast, but we'll figure it out, right? And we figured it out. And so, you had this idea of the Dopai Dojo, of a community, and then you're just going to figure it out. And like, there's just no way to figure it out without doing it. Like, there's no way you could 4 months ago simulate in your head exactly what was going to happen and know what it's going to look like today, 4 months after it started.
Yeah, that's definitely something I get stuck in all the time, especially like when creating videos. I'm like, I need the perfect title, the perfect thumbnail, like the perfect video idea. And you recommended the book to me, Million Dollar Weekend. And that's
Mm.
kind of like how this all started rolling. Is like it emphasizes taking action, iterating, getting feedback, and that's exactly what I did with the dojo. Is like in the first month that I launched it, every week I was getting feedback. After
Mm.
every session, I was asking for feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And we've gotten to the point now where like I ask for feedback and it's just crickets. It's like, oh, I guess we're in a good spot.
Yeah.
So the main thing right now for me is like not changing things, but more so marketing, trying to get more people into it.
Sure. Well, I think what's really cool, and I'd love to hear you talk about this, but this is what I see, is that with the community, you've been able to balance both your needs and what you want from your work with economics. You know, and that's not always easy. If you and I wanted to be a poet today, we we'd have trouble making it work. I don't know that poetry is that big on Twitch. It's a hard thing to make work economically. You've been able to like craft the community in a way that the learning that you do is life-giving for you because you find it interesting, and it also serves the purpose of serving the community. So like, what did it look like for you to achieve that balance?
I think part of it was like I knew that interacting with people more was going to be fulfilling, which is why I wanted a community in the first place. I was interacting with people before a one-on-one, which was great, but it's like in a month, it's like maybe 5 or 8 people compared to, 60 plus that I have now. So I think like having that vision was important. In
Yeah.
terms of like the economic side of things, I wasn't shooting for anything crazy.
Yeah.
Like the goal of the community eventually is to cap out at 200 members.
Yeah.
And, with $30 a month, 200 members, that's like 6,000. That's like normal job basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like set some targets in terms of finances that I would like to hit and kind of, ask myself like, is this reasonable? Can I do that? Like what would I look like? What would it look like in a year? And is that plausible? And I kind of felt like, definitely felt doable. So outlining it for me was a big piece, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then what about your openness to change, right? Because when you kind of first started it, you were very much starting it from the mold of what you understood. The We Will Teach You League, the broken by concept model, which I think is very much focused on pure VOD reviews, right?
Right.
And then we had some conversations about it, but you very quickly shifted. Was that hard to move on from something that you saw somewhere else and was like, this is the model I'm following?
I definitely felt some inner turmoil over it because I was like, I know this works, but I'm doing this. But I kind of like quickly realized a couple of things. One was that the rapid fire VOD reviews that they were doing in League doesn't work as well in Valorant because each round is a fresh round. So that's kind of something different. But also, two, was that I was seeing a lot of the same mistakes and I didn't have any resources to refer them to. And also, the scaling factor was difficult. Like the way to move forward with the previous situation was to hire more coaches or for me to work more time zones. So yeah, adjusting it kind of felt scary, but at the same time, I knew there were some problems that I would have to address to make it work. And I treated it as like I forget where I heard this from. I think from the Founders podcast, maybe. Like Jeff Bezos has the idea of like having a two-way door decision.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
if I literally said that in my announcement in the Discord, was like, we're gonna try this thing. If it doesn't work, we can just revert.
Yeah.
You know, no big deal. But we're gonna give it a go. I'm gonna experiment. This whole point of the dojo was to experiment in the first place. And I mean, we were changing formats and scheduling like every week regardless. So this was kind of just another iteration of that.
Sure. Yeah, he talks about this idea of like there's two types of decisions. The decisions that are irreversible, for which there will be, it would be very difficult to change or come back. So, Amazon, that would be selling one of their businesses. Like you can't just be like, hey, like can I like press
Buy
Control
that
Z
back.
on that? Like no,
Yeah.
like you can't. But if you just roll out a new feature and if it doesn't work, you can roll it back. Like
Right.
he's like, for the reversible decisions, let's not make so much time, spend so much time making those decisions. Just make them, and we'll live with the good or the bad, and we'll figure it out and we'll move on. And I think, that is a really helpful, like that's a really useful mindset or hat to wear. Um, the other useful one is just to bias towards, in general, just to bias towards action, and to know that you're wearing that hat rather than the other one. Actually, in writing, you know how sometimes when you have a blank page, it's really hard to get started.
Right.
What's really helpful for me is I heard this, I think on a podcast once, which is on the first draft, your goal is fast and bad. Like if you just, if you give yourself a goal of fast and bad, it's not that hard to get started. It's when you give yourself the goal of the first draft to be like word for word perfect and correct, like then you just can't, like you get like a sentence per 10 minutes, like you just can't get started. Whereas if fast and bad just allows you to just lay your crappy first draft, and then you can iterate later.
The iteration thing was definitely a big piece for me to, I guess, embrace. And definitely not perfect, and it still is something I want to take into other areas of my life. But for now, with the career, at least with the dojo specifically, and with the gym, the iteration approach works pretty well for me.
What are you doing in the dojo for community?
We've played some 10-mans, and they've
cool.
been
And how was
they've
those?
been they're a blast. I would say that's one of the main ones.
And
They're
are
not.
you playing in the 10 mans?
I am playing the 10
Are you
mans.
playing try hard though, or are you just messing around? Like,
I'm definitely tryharding. I'm playing to win every single one.
okay.
I am filling though, like
Okay.
some games I'll be like on Sova, some games I'll be on Duelist, just
Okay.
based on the nature. But I always let people pick their picks. But I'm calming a lot. I'm dead. I'm backseating like, yo, Omen, blind for my teammate before he peeks. Like, anything that makes sense. So I'm tryharding. And the auto balancing is really good. Like every game we played, I think, and we probably played like 10, 15 games at this point. All of them have been like really close OTs.
What do you mean auto balancing? Like there's a website you can use or something? Like external?
So we have like the 10 people in the game, but we use in the custom, there's like a button that auto balances and the game will choose players on each team.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
That's crazy because it knows your hidden MMR or ELO.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so interesting. That's such a cool feature. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, super good. So we're using like a bot called NeatQ, and that bot traditionally your teams get picked by the bot, but we choose like player picks their team and then we load into the custom and then auto sort and then kind of go from there.
Interesting.
But, yeah, it's been fun. I think that's the main thing with the community. It isn't a scheduled thing, which is something I want to change when we get more members.
Sure.
But that's one of them. The other community aspect thing was introducing the mechanics training sessions. So
cool. Okay.
That's, I would say, is the main one.
So that's where you'd like partner up or buddy up and then just do some mechanics training?
That's correct. So we've tried a couple of different variations at this point, but essentially I show how to contact space or fight this area. Like for example, sunset A site, or we've done sunset top mid, but just like an area of the map. And then I'll send people off into pairs, and then one person will be holding the angle and they'll just switch it up every time the duel happens and someone's walking out contacting, and then flip, I get feedback, but at least that way people can kind of interact with each other.
And what has been the feedback on those?
I mean, it's useful. 100% useful, undertrained for sure. and it's actually like a time frame for people to practice it.
Good.
I think I think what I'm learning is that Valorant coaching isn't necessarily new knowledge all the time. Like some people don't know what this concept is, especially newer players. But for other players, like I would assume Ascendant Plus, most of the members in the dojo, by the way, are Ascendant or Immortal, which is a bit surprising. Um, but they just don't practice it. They don't take the time for it.
Mhm.
So it's really about like polishing where they're at, I guess.
And what is important to you about community?
I think that it's important that kind of everyone knows everyone, or at least I know everyone, and what their goal is in the game and where they're going, and kind of like what their problems are. I think when I kind of reflect back on my journey as a competitive player, it was me and four teammates, but aside from that, it was just like the void. It's not
Mhm.
like I spoke to many of my teammates outside of the game.
Mhm.
So that community is to try and drive people to actually encourage them to play the ranked games, which I think is the hardest part. And making ranked a priority, I think, is big.
Um, and what are you hoping for in the future?
That's a tough one. It goes back to the original vision that I had, which was like a place for people to grow in the game, but also outside of the game. And I think what I'm working towards right now is really figuring out what that outside of the game factor looks like. Um, I think the in-game stuff, based on the feedback, the in-game stuff on a scale like 1 to 10, like we're really close to like an 8 or a 9 out of 10.
Great.
But the community piece was something closer to like a 5 or a 6, and then
Great. Okay.
I think building that community to an 8 or a 9 will, I think, directly impact what the out of game stuff will be as well.
So I think you'd find this so interesting. You remember I was reading that book called To Greatness by
Mm-hmm.
Alex Auerbach, and I kept sending you little snippets. So I just got to interview him on my other podcast,
Oh,
um,
that's awesome.
which is super cool. And one thing that came up, and it's just when you say it, it makes so much sense. But before you make the link, they feel really separate, which is we know like resilience and grit is super important in a lot of things. We know it's important in improving at Valorant, just like it's important of going to the gym. If you're grinding that last rep, you need some grit. You also need some grit to go when you're not feeling like it, right? And we often think of grit as just or resilience as just like a David Goggins thing, like just like your mind overpowering. And what they find, and he said this is like across so many studies, like a really robust finding, is that your resilience is really affected by the amount of social support you have.
Mm,
Right. And you can imagine this, right? Like if you had a real tough day at work and you've got family and friends to kind of got your back and to lift you back up, like you're going to be more resilient. Whereas if you got no one to talk to, then you're just relying on yourself, right? And so it makes a lot of sense when you say it, but before you say it, they feel like really unlinked, right? And so the moment you say that of like this virtuous circle of community and affecting the rest, like how people feel about the community affecting the effectiveness of the community, I think that makes total sense, like when you put it in that framework.
yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That's definitely one of like the reasons why I wanted to build it. Not exactly as you said, but like I didn't have that community when I was playing, and I feel like I wanted a space where I could help people that are playing the game actively and help them not fall into some pitfalls that I did.
Well, and even some of the really great players that are up and comers have had a lot of stuff. Recently there's been a lot of drama and pretty bad stuff that's come out of some pretty talented players, right? And I think it's because they haven't had a lot of support. I don't think they've also had like a great role modeling of what it can look like to not be super toxic in this space. What it can look like to be like really well adjusted.
That's the hard part about being chronically online, I think.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's where if you're going to be chronically online and this is the thing that you enjoy doing, just like some people like playing golf or playing hockey, like what you're doing is creating a better space,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where we can have better outcomes.
Yeah,
I think that's what We Will Teach You League is trying to do too.
I agree.
What would you say, like in terms of the vibe of the community? What's that been like? Is it
I mean, it's positive.
That's good?
We definitely don't. There's not much coping involved. We don't like people will check you pretty quickly if you're coping. Coping. So
That's good.
yeah, and yeah. I mean, I really enjoy the space. Like every single day or anytime I have downtime, I'll like boot up on Discord on my phone and I'll just look through the chat and see if I can talk to people. And I think uh, it's active, so it's a good place to be in, I think, and I'm
Cool.
proud of the people in there.
That's great. Well, that's awesome, man. I think it's a testament to your capability. I think there was an element there too where I think, because we've kind of had conversations about this, like you were almost underestimating the goodwill that you have built up in your community, even for the people that were not paying you anything, because there was only so many people that could pay that $1,000, right?
Right.
And so, you know, I think you being able to bring it about took a lot of courage and, um, yeah, thoughtfulness and hard work. So I think it's been super cool for me to see you build that for yourself.
I appreciate the kind words, but maybe switching gears a little bit. You're building something.
Yeah.
What's the rundown on that? I know we've spoken about it, but I think your thing is probably more exciting and probably more impactful in the community than mine will be.
So this took root in my mind probably in the fall of 2024, which is actually it goes even further back, because when I came back into Valorant in 2021, started getting into it, I was just like amazed at how far things had come. Like this idea of trading, of playing man up and man down situations, playing aggressively in a man down situation, playing passively in a man up situation, like this idea of crosshair placement and the thoughtfulness on like shoulder, like jiggle peaks versus wide swinging, like all of these things make so much sense when you understand them. But when I started playing back in like 98, like it was just aim, like you just either had aim or you didn't. And then to have this knowledge of what good aim looks like at a fundamental level was so interesting to me. And getting to know you better was part of that journey and understanding more. And then in the fall of 2024, what I realized was like, oh, there's such a gap between the way people take gunfights in Valorant and Counter-Strike and how we treat other parts of similar things in sports. As an example, if you are a pitcher or a hitter in baseball, or you're a golfer, people put crazy amounts of time into their technique, right? Like if you have good technique, it kind of makes everything easier, right? Because you could be the biggest, strongest dude ever, but unless you have great technique, you can't really hit a golf ball very far, right?
Right.
And similarly, I would actually say it's kind of true in Valorant, which is if you have crazy aim, but you can't deliver that through good technique in Valorant, you're going to be okay, but you're not going to be amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is why not every great aim training god is good at first person shooters. It's because, well, there's game sense too, but there's also like, how do you land this within the mechanics of a game, and maps and stuff like that. And so at least what I realized is, long story short, is we don't really have a great way of training people's mechanics. Often people just get it naturally, the people that just make it to Radiant easily, or people don't get it at all. We know what it looks like. We know that you're supposed to have good crosshair placement. We know you're supposed to peek with intention, that you're supposed to pre-aim into the wall sometimes. You're supposed to trace the wall sometimes. You're supposed to wide swing sometimes. You need to have good gunfight hygiene. We know what all of these things look like, but we don't really have a good way of of tracking it. It's quite qualitative, and we have certainly not a great way of training it.
Right.
That would be the most boring thing for you to do as a coach, in my opinion, is to just work with people solely on each gunfight, to like track and watch every single gunfight. And so what I'm building is called Training Arc, and the goal is to build software that someone can subscribe to that will watch their recorded game after the fact and be able to break down the mechanics of their gunfights. Is there issue gunfight hygiene? Are they crouch spraying immediately? Looking at you, FNS, and me really. And are you not moving between bullets? Are your bullets often inaccurate? Is your crosshair placement above or below where it should be? Are you always wide swinging? Are you never wide swinging? You know, like it'll be like trying to track all of that, rate you based on what is a good score, and then give you advice on the things that you need to be working on. And I think the big part is like being able to show that you are improving on that over time. So that's the goal. It's a pretty big task because it's not like you can just tell ChatGPT to be like, hey, rate this video in terms of good crosshair placement or not. There's a lot of work to do. So that's been hard, but it's been super interesting. But maybe that's the business idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think the core of the idea for me, which really aligns with our podcast, is like, I want this tool because I think it's a good tool, and I think a lot of people benefit from it. I think, and there's lots of interesting things I want to learn along the way. But the second part of it, which I would say is just as important as the economic case that it's solving a problem, is that my goal is that as people use the tool, they can create in themselves a sense of growth mindset and self-efficacy. And growth mindset means that you can grow as a person. If we can grow these skills in you, we can show that you are not fixed as a person. You can grow and develop. And self-efficacy is that you can see that when you set yourself after goals, you can go and achieve them. Like that will be the goal of this product, is to help people realize that about themselves and develop that knowledge about themselves. And that's really the key, is to be able to take that elsewhere in their lives. You know, like that will help you in your relationships, to have self-efficacy and a growth mindset. It's going to help you in your job. It's going to help you in school. It's going to help you in anything that you want to do with your life. And so my goal is that this would be, one, a good product that helps people get better at Valorant, and two, is supportive of them in their life journey. So that's like the hope and the goal.
It definitely, I think one of the reasons why it's such a compelling idea is the fact that there's a way to actually see like a score. Like, you know, when I think about the people that I work with and they play Valorant and they get into the aim trainer, some people actually enjoy the aim trainer more than the game, because they can see, like, they have their base score, they can see improvement over time. They're like, oh, this is so interesting. Like, I'm making progress on this thing. And also the fact that you can kind of, you know, watch it back and kind of tweak it, but it's a small snippet. Like one scenario on Kovacs or Aim Labs is like 60 seconds. And in Valorant, like, at least when you're looking at your game as a whole, it's like so many things to look at. But in your point here, it's mechanics. So one gunfight might be a couple of seconds or not even a second. And also, we're getting a score attached to it. And I think you can get that sense of progression, which is really important. And also it gives you the guidance piece. Like, I've worked with people, and I'm currently working with a player now, and like our focus is mechanics. And it was like, my advice was like, okay, well, download this program that will allow you to see your kills and your deaths. It will like kind of just point it out for you on the timeline. You can just click to it or whatever. And like the next day he reaches out and he's like, I don't know what I'm looking for. You know, I like, what do I do? Like, I see that I died here, or I see that I won here, but like, what am I looking for?
Yeah.
And I realized like those things, like, not everyone can look back at the gun duels and be like, oh, like,
this is why I lost.
This is why I lost. Exactly. Yeah. So I think, you know, the training arc will not only solve that issue, but also make more people aware of the mechanical side of Valorant, which I say it all the time, Valorant's a shooter first. You know?
It is a shooter first, right? Like, one interesting finding I had was, like, I was doing some manual work to just test out whether the gunfight hygiene will help. And one interesting finding was on average, how many gunfights do you think you take a game on average?
Well, you told me,
Oh,
but
oh, so you
yeah,
already know the answer. Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it is on average is about 30 a game,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it goes plus or minus because some games go to OT, some games don't. But we cracked like 150 games, and like across 150 games, it's like 30 gunfights a game. And so what that means is, if you are taking 30 gunfights a game, that's 30 gunfights, and not all of them are 50-50. So just we'll take that with, and sometimes you just get shot in the back, right? But 30 gunfights, that means you get to use this technique around 30 times, right? And so if you can move that needle even from 50% to 51%, you probably win. What's 50%? Like you could probably win a couple more gunfights, right? And so if you win a couple more gunfights, that can change that 11-13 game to a 13-11, right? And so
100%.
like I think like at the end of the day, the gunfights turn into round wins, and the round wins turn into RR,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so like it's the most kind of like granular thing. Like of course you can get like lineup kills and stuff, but that's like a minor part of the game relative to everything else. Um so I think it is like very much like this golf swing, this like um baseball swing, that if we can just like nail that. And here's the thing, for some players this maybe is not interesting at all, right? Which is fine. Like if and I think there's many ways of playing the game. If you want to be a brim that always plays offsite, post plant, and has a lineup, and that's the way you want to play the game, you can play it. You're gonna tap out, right? But for the players that are interested on the mechanics, I think it'll be super interesting, even just for a high level player. As I'm talking about this, I even think it'd be really interesting if we have enough of a sample, and the AI can really understand what it's seeing. I think we can actually probably begin to say, hey, this was a 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you took it made it a 60-40, or the way you took it made it a 45-55.
Right, right.
Right. I think that'd be super interesting. The other thing I'm super interested about is like understanding positioning. Like if you're in a power position versus like a weak position on site, let's say, and how would a pro play versus how you would play? Like, can we heat map that based on pro and radiant players, and then be able to give you like a plus minus score on positioning, util usage? But maybe the most interesting one, and I think it'd be interesting to our listeners too, is like, I'm sure you've been in a clutch situation and your heart's pounding out of your chest, and then your teammates like do this, and then you do that, or you didn't do it and you did something different, whatever, you die, and they're like, why did you do that? And you're so frustrated because you're like, I just needed to focus, and you were actively bringing, like, it's totally fine to calm one bullet, or you have your ult, right? And then you get to choose, right? But when it's calming what to do, you've got to fight that idea of like, should I listen or not listen? And I think if we are able to track your voice comms, I think we could probably tell someone, hey, you're actually an Immortal 1 player, but your comms bring down the level of your team performance to Ascendant 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure that exists. Like, where a passive aggressive person brings down the level of the team. And I'm sure there are people that are like pretty chill and good at diffusing conflict that actually, raises their RR by like 100 RR.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are an Ascendant 1 player, but you play in Ascendant 3 lobbies because you're just a chill, relaxed person, diffuses conflict, keeps the vibes up.
Something that comes to mind too is when you're speaking about the heat maps, I could definitely see something like the heat maps bringing out playbooks quicker. Like, just as an example, what kind of envisions on my head is like Icebox. If I'm playing Icebox defense and I'm watching, say, a Viper, I would expect him to play B, you know? But I looked at a Nats VOD recently. He's not playing B. He played B for 2 rounds, and then he's playing Boiler, and he's just fast rotating that Viper.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah,
So he's just
and
relying on his util to like slow people coming
to
out
stall,
of B,
exactly.
and then he'll rotate.
And he'll rotate. And I'd be very curious to see like where he gets the kills, like where he is, where the kills are, and like the percentage of like with enough data, you'll be able to see like if he's in this position, he tends to win his gunfights a large percentage of the time. But if he's in this position, he might win it a little bit percentage of the time. And I feel like seeing that, like I'm very data oriented, like, so I think if I was able to see that in my own gameplay, I'm like, I'm dying a lot here, but I'm getting a lot of kills here.
So
maybe
I think what's super interesting about this is, and this is something I want to understand better, is like, is there an archetypal way of optimal play? Like there's a Viper archetype Nats, and then there's a less archetype on Icebox that play
Right.
differently, and then do they get different win rates? And then the second part is like, is one better than the other, or is less better than Nats? You know, like it's kind of, and so then the question becomes, is there one better way of playing this map, or are there multiple good ways of playing this map? You should choose one, and you're going to need to understand which type of player you are. You know, I think like those are really interesting questions for which, and this is so many things in Valorant, for we don't really actually have answers to, and we wouldn't really be able to know how to get answers to that.
I'm on that journey right now to figure that out. Like one of the discoveries I made when I was reviewing all these pro VODs is a lot of these pros fast rotate, like a lot of them. And I thought that was going to be a consistent trend for players on the top of the ladder. But the player that ended rank 1 last act,
Does not fast rotate.
does not fast rotate on defense. He hard plays his extremity. And then I was recently looking at Exter's VODs earlier today, which Yoru is kind of a unique agent. But when I
would think he rotates, I would think he rotates a lot. That's kind of the utility of the agent on defense with the teleport.
Exactly. But like on first sign of life, shown on the opposite side of the map, he doesn't just insta TP. Some rounds he will, but other rounds he'll just stay. He might even push, and he might just sit there and just twiddle his thumbs, you know. And I like when I'm seeing this, I'm like, wow, Note and Eggster aren't fast rotating, but like that's kind of what's been trained into me after looking at all these pro VODs. And they're obviously both really, really good players and really high up on the rank ladder. But so is a player like Oxy, and Oxy fast rotates every round. You know, so I think we're reaching to the point to where you can kind of play more traditional and smart and do really well, but you can also play to take high risk and fast rotate like Nats or Oxy. They're rotating so fast and going for such creative plays and kind of just brute forcing their duels and winning, you know? So I think we have like, at least personally, I have like a little bit of inkling on what the answer will be, but to see it backed up with data across a lot of different players will be very interesting to see.
I think what'll be really interesting for me is to train the model and then be able to like look at, I think it'd be really interesting to be able to train the model and break down things like the quality of crosshair placement versus the quality of micro adjustments, how much reaction time matters. You know, like for players, I think of players like Prime Ye holding angles, it's like 100%, right? And I would assume it's that his reaction time, his crosshair placement are both so impeccable that he was just able to repeatedly deliver on a headshot at such a high rate, right? Whereas maybe your crosshair placement is perfectly at head level, but it's not perfectly synced to your reaction time, you know? And so I think it'll be so interesting to see how different players, like pro players that we understand to be really good, stack up. Are like they fairly similar and they're really only different at the margins, or do they actually go about getting the results really differently? I think that's super interesting.
I can shorthand and say specifically for Oxy, he holds his angles very differently.
Does he?
Like he holds like else? Yeah, like his crosshair's right on the wall. Same with Cryocells.
Oh really?
But, yeah,
because I was just watching a Demon 1 video, and he's known for having crazy aim, and he was definitely advocating for a significant gap. Like he was talking about like tracing walls with about a 1 head gap.
Yeah, Cryo and Oxy both are very close to the wall, and Primi holds pretty wide. Like Primi is like impeccable at like they swing him, he just clicks, he doesn't move. But Oxy, like when he gets wide swung, he actually makes the adjustment because I think he's very confident on his micro adjustments.
Interesting.
But like he's kind of like aiming so close to the wall to catch people that jiggle peek him, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
So I think there's so many different parts there, and I think that's life too. Going back to that, actually, the interview I did on the other podcast is one of the things he was talking about is flexibility is a huge piece of success. And so there's an element of flexibility of learning how other people do things, seeing what the options are, and then understanding yourself enough to be able to apply the right thing to yourself.
Yeah. On that note too, like you were speaking about gun hygiene, you know, for a lot of the players in the lower ranks, not spraying is going to be very good for you. Bursting, moving, that type of dynamic. But there are tons of players at the high level that just spray people. Like it's actually, they don't burst and strafe. Like they see a target on their screen, they just flick, spray. Some players will angle hold, and some players, like Durko, for example, when he's angle holding, he'll take one bullet and then strafe to the side. Like his first bullet, if it hits, great. If not, he's already moving and he's moving on to the next shot. And I would argue that that's the more ideal way to do it, because it probably is more consistent. But then you have players like Eggster or Canes or even Zekin. Like you'll sometimes see in his fights, the target swings and they just hold mouse one and they just spray control the guy. Maybe they don't get the insta kill, but like bullet 2, 3, 4, 5, one of them is going to hit the face. You know, they get the kill. So I think like from the realm of knowing if you're strong at, you know, burst strafing or if your spray control is really good, you might be able to lean into that. And I think mechanically in Valorant, there's so much like unexplored territory on what might be optimal for one player compared to another, based on where your strengths are.
I think we're all playing the same game. We don't have, you know, better equipment than, well, I guess some of us do in terms of like paying and all that stuff. But I think it's interesting. We have this idea, I think, of a theoretical perfect Valorant player. And yet I think it really diminishes the fact that we as people, in terms of our skill sets and strengths, reaction times, makes us different players. And so there are some fundamentals that underlie all of this. And yet there are also certain things where part of the secret sauce and the magic is you figuring out what works for you. Because I think if you told someone a couple of years ago when ISO came out that an ISO only player would be able to dominate tier 2 Valorant, you'd be like, no, you should be able to be punished, right? But Kane Zera, he has ridiculous statistics.
He's disgusting.
And it's kind of like that's not possible, but his skill set and how he applies it in the game and his just capabilities make it such that it's possible. And so I think there's an element of like he's figured out what it looks like for him to play at an optimal level, and it's made things possible within the game that we thought like were not really that possible. Whether he can continue that level of performance at like a tier 1 level is the next big question, right? But I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, a lot of interesting questions that hopefully we'll figure out the answer to with Training Arc. And
yeah, so I mean, yeah, I'm building it now. The goal will be to like launch hopefully like a web app in June, and then start releasing content around that as well. But yeah, I still have like a founding supporter available, which is if you want to pay $30, you will get a 50% lifetime discount, and then you'll get the first 2 months free.
Gotcha. So
that's trainingarc.gg. So if you're interested in that, and if you're not, it's totally fine too. But that's only going to be for, I think, another 70 spots.
I mean, that's exciting. You guys got to get that discount, trainingarc.gg. Come on, let's go.
Thanks for all the questions, Adam.
No, thanks for sharing. I saw, you know what, I wanted to briefly mention. I was looking on Reddit, and like this post was like old, like maybe 11 months ago or something. And that was about Wahujin and like him, you know, going through that. But like someone in the comments was like, who should we like move to? And someone mentioned this podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like thinking like that was so long ago. Like we just started the podcast like around probably like we were a couple of months in. And they were like, so, you know, I think TVL is the secret sauce that people were getting on. But now the next secret sauce will be Training Arc.
Well, we'll keep doing this too.
For sure.
Adam, always good talking to you, and everyone listening. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much.